Have you ever felt something about a person before they said a single word? Have you ever walked into a room and instantly sensed that something wasn't right? Maybe everyone else seemed perfectly normal. Maybe nobody was arguing. Nobody was upset. And yet you felt it. Heaviness, tension, an invisible weight hanging in the air. Or perhaps you've experienced something even stranger. Someone sits down beside you. They smile. They tell you they're fine. But deep inside you somehow know they're hurting. And more often than not, you end up being right. If experiences like these have followed you throughout your life, there's a possibility that what you're experiencing is more than simple intuition, more than sensitivity, more than empathy. It may be a sign that you possess natural healing abilities. Now, before we go any further, let's clarify something important. When people hear the word healer, they often imagine someone with extraordinary powers, someone who performs miracles, someone with special gifts that only a select few possess. But real healing doesn't always look like that. Sometimes healing is the ability to make someone feel understood when the rest of the world ignores them. Sometimes healing is offering peace in the middle of chaos. Sometimes healing is simply your presence, your energy, your compassion, your ability to listen without judgment. And the truth is, many people who carry these gifts spend years unaware of them. Why? Because what feels unusual to others feels completely normal to them. They assume everyone experiences life the same way. Everyone notices the same things. Everyone feels emotions with the same intensity. But that's not true. In fact, some of the very qualities you've spent your life trying to suppress may actually be clues pointing toward a deeper purpose. Perhaps you've been told you're too sensitive, too emotional, too caring, too affected by the problems of others. Perhaps you've spent years wondering why crowds drain you, why certain places make you uncomfortable, why complete strangers trust you with their deepest secrets, or why people often leave conversations with you feeling lighter than when they arrived. What if these experiences aren't random? What if they're connected? And what if they've been trying to tell you something all along? In today's video, we're going to explore some of the most common signs associated with natural healing abilities. You may recognize many of them. You may recognize only a few. Either way, I encourage you to keep an open mind, because sometimes the things we dismiss as coincidence turn out to be some of the most important clues about who we truly are. But before we continue, I'd like to ask you for a small favor. We spend countless hours researching, creating, and sharing these videos completely free. Our mission is to bring meaningful content that inspires personal growth, spiritual awareness, and positive transformation. So if you find value in what we share, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel. It's a simple gesture, but it helps us reach more people and continue creating content like this. And I'd love to hear from you. Tell me in the comments, have you ever experienced something that made you feel different from the people around you? Something you couldn't fully explain? Let us know below. You might be surprised by how many others have experienced the same thing. Now let's begin with one of the strongest and most revealing signs of all. A level of empathy that goes far beyond ordinary compassion. Sign number 1. You feel other people's emotions as if they were your own. Empathy is one of the most commonly recognized traits among people with natural healing tendencies. But we're not talking about ordinary empathy. We're talking about something much deeper. Something that can sometimes feel more like a burden than a gift. Have you ever spent time with someone who was anxious, angry, or heartbroken, and then found yourself feeling those same emotions hours later, even after they were gone? Have you ever walked into a room feeling perfectly fine, only to leave feeling emotionally exhausted for reasons you couldn't explain? Many people with healing gifts experience exactly that. It's as if they unconsciously absorb the emotional atmosphere around them. They don't simply observe emotions. They feel them, sometimes so intensely that they struggle to distinguish between their own feelings and those of the people around them. This can be confusing, especially during childhood. Many natural healers grow up believing there's something wrong with them. They wonder why they cry so easily, why criticism hurts so deeply, why conflict affects them more than it seems to affect everyone else. What they don't realize is that their emotional sensitivity is often functioning like a radar system. They're picking up signals that many people completely miss. And while this heightened awareness can be challenging, it can also become one of their greatest strengths. Because when you truly feel what another person is experiencing, you gain access to something powerful: compassion, understanding, connection. Think about the people who have had the greatest positive impact on your life. Chances are they weren't the smartest people you met. They weren't necessarily the richest or the most successful. They were the people who made you feel seen. The people who understood your pain without judging it. The people who made you feel safe enough to be yourself. That is healing. And many natural healers provide that experience without even realizing it. But there's a shadow side to this gift. When you constantly absorb the emotions of others, you can become emotionally overloaded. You may find yourself carrying burdens that don't belong to you. You may spend so much time helping others process their pain that you neglect your own emotional needs. Over time, this can lead to exhaustion, burnout, emotional confusion, and even resentment. That's why one of the most important lessons every healer must learn is this: compassion does not require self-sacrifice. You can care deeply about others without carrying their suffering. You can support people without becoming responsible for their healing. And you can love people without losing yourself in the process. The healthiest healers understand where they end and where others begin. They learn to remain open-hearted while protecting their own energy. And perhaps that's the lesson you may be learning right now. So let me ask you something. Have you ever felt emotionally drained after spending time with certain people? Have you ever absorbed someone else's mood without meaning to? If so, write yes in the comments. You'll probably discover that many others have experienced the exact same thing. And if this message is already resonating with you, take a moment to subscribe. We create these videos to help people better understand themselves, their spiritual journey, and the hidden gifts they may have overlooked for years. In return for all this free content, subscribing is one of the best ways you can support the channel. Now, while deep empathy is often the first sign people notice, the second sign can be even more surprising, because it has less to do with what you feel, and more to do with how other people feel when they're around you. Sign number 2. People feel peace when they're around you. Have you ever noticed that people seem to relax around you almost immediately? Maybe you've experienced situations where someone started talking to you and, within minutes, began sharing things they had never told anyone else. Their fears, their worries, their heartbreak, their struggles. And afterward they thanked you. Not because you solved their problems. Not because you gave them some life-changing advice. But simply because they felt better after talking to you. If this has happened repeatedly throughout your life, it may not be a coincidence. One of the most overlooked signs of a natural healer is the ability to create emotional safety for other people. In today's world, genuine emotional safety is surprisingly rare. Many people spend their lives feeling misunderstood, ignored, or unseen. They walk through life carrying invisible burdens that no one notices. And then they meet someone who truly listens. Someone who doesn't interrupt. Someone who doesn't immediately try to fix them. Someone who simply allows them to be heard. That alone can be incredibly healing. You may not realize it, but your presence could be giving people something they've been searching for their entire lives. A moment of peace. A moment of acceptance. A moment where they no longer feel alone. And that kind of gift is far more powerful than most people understand. Think about it. How many times have you walked away from a conversation feeling lighter because someone genuinely listened to you? How many times has a simple act of kindness changed the direction of your entire day? Healing often happens in moments that seem small. Conversation. Smile. A reassuring word. Compassionate presence. Natural healers often underestimate their impact because what comes naturally to them feels ordinary. But for the person receiving it, it can be life-changing. In fact, many people carrying healing energy never realize how much they influence others. Because people don't always tell them. Sometimes a single conversation helps someone through a difficult week. Sometimes a moment of compassion prevents someone from giving up hope. Sometimes your presence becomes the reminder they needed that goodness still exists in the world. And here's something even more interesting. Many natural healers unknowingly create a calming effect on the nervous systems of those around them. Have you ever noticed that anxious people become calmer around you? That emotional situations seem to settle when you arrive. That people often tell you they feel peaceful in your presence. These experiences are more common than you might think. Your energy speaks long before your words do. People don't just hear what you say. They feel who you are. And when someone carries authenticity, compassion, and emotional stability, others naturally respond to it. Of course, this doesn't mean you're responsible for everyone's happiness. That's another lesson many healers must learn. You're not here to save everyone. You are not responsible for fixing every problem. And you are not meant to carry the weight of the entire world on your shoulders. Your role is not to rescue. Your role is to illuminate, to inspire, to comfort, to remind others of their own strength. There's a huge difference. One path leads to burnout. The other leads to purpose. So let me ask you, have people ever told you that they feel calm, comfortable, or safe when they're around you? If they have, write peace in the comments below. I'd love to see how many people resonate with this sign. And if you're enjoying this journey of self-discovery, don't forget to subscribe. We share these insights freely because we believe understanding yourself can change your life. And in return, subscribing helps us continue creating content that reaches people who may need these messages the most. Now, while creating peace for others is a beautiful gift, the next sign can be much more challenging. Because many natural healers feel an almost irresistible urge to help everyone around them. That comes at a very high personal cost. Sign number 3. You feel compelled to help others, even when it costs you. This next sign is one of the most beautiful, and one of the most dangerous. Because while compassion can be a gift, it can also become a trap when it's not balanced with wisdom. Have you ever found yourself putting other people's needs ahead of your own? Over and over again. Have you ever given your time, your energy, your attention, and even your peace of mind to help someone else? Only to realize later that you had completely neglected yourself. So, you're not alone. Many people with natural healing abilities carry an overwhelming desire to help. They see someone's pain and immediately want to ease it. They hear someone struggle and instinctively begin looking for solutions. They witness suffering and feel called to do something about it. To them, helping feels natural, almost automatic. In many ways, it's simply who they are. But here's the challenge. Not everyone who asks for help is ready to be helped. And not every problem is yours to solve. This is a lesson that many healers spend years learning, sometimes decades, because when your heart is open, it's easy to believe that if you just try harder, love harder, do more, sacrifice more, you can save everyone. But life eventually teaches a difficult truth. You cannot heal someone who refuses to heal themselves. You cannot grow for someone. You cannot change for someone. You cannot awaken for someone. And you cannot carry another person's journey on your back. Yet many natural healers try. Again and again. They become the listener, the advisor, the rescuer, the emotional support system, the one everyone calls when life falls apart. And while they appear strong on the outside, inside they are often exhausted, because they're constantly pouring energy outward, without replenishing themselves. This pattern often begins early in life. Many healers were the peacemakers in their families, the emotional caretakers, the ones who sensed tension before anyone spoke, the ones who learned to take care of everyone else before taking care of themselves. Over time, this becomes an identity. They begin to believe their value comes from what they do for others, from how much they give, from how much they sacrifice. But true healing doesn't require self-destruction. In fact, one of the greatest spiritual lessons a healer can learn is this. Your worth is not determined by how much you suffer for others. Read that again. Your worth is not determined by how much you suffer for others. You do not have to exhaust yourself to prove your love. You do not have to save everyone to justify your existence. You do not have to carry the world to be worthy. Real healing comes from overflow, not depletion. Think of a candle. A candle can light thousands of others, but only if its own flame remains alive. The moment the candle burns itself out, can no longer illuminate anything. The same is true for you. If you neglect your own emotional health, your own spiritual growth, your own peace, eventually you will have nothing left to give. That's why healthy boundaries are not selfish. They're sacred. Boundaries protect your energy, your peace, your purpose. They allow you to help others from a place of strength rather than exhaustion. And perhaps that's exactly what someone listening to this video needs to hear today. Maybe you've spent years taking care of everyone else. Maybe you've spent years being strong for everyone around you. Maybe you've spent years carrying burdens that were never yours to carry. So, consider this your reminder. You deserve the same compassion you so freely give to others. You deserve rest. You deserve healing. You deserve support. And you deserve to be cared for too. So let me ask you something. Have you ever found yourself helping others while neglecting your own needs? If that's happened to you, write "me" in the comments. You may be surprised by how many people share the same experience. And if this message resonates with you, take a moment to subscribe. We create these videos to help people better understand themselves, protect their energy, and discover their deeper purpose. Your support allows us to continue sharing this content with people around the world. Now, while this desire to help others is often visible, the next sign is much more subtle. In fact, many people don't even realize it's happening, because it involves something that can't be seen with the eyes. Yet it's something you may have been feeling your entire life. The ability to sense the energy of people and places the moment you enter a room. Sign number 4. You instantly sense the energy of people and places. Have you ever walked into a room and immediately felt uncomfortable? Even though nothing appeared to be wrong. No one was arguing. No one was raising their voice. Everything looked perfectly normal. And yet something inside you was telling a different story. Maybe you felt tension, heaviness, anxiety, or perhaps you've had the opposite experience. You entered a place and instantly felt calm, relaxed, as if a weight had been lifted from your shoulders. If you've experienced this throughout your life, there's a chance you're far more sensitive to your environment than most people realize. Now let's be clear. You don't have to believe in anything supernatural to understand this phenomenon. Human beings are constantly processing information. Far more information than we're consciously aware of. Body language, facial expressions, tone of voice, atmosphere, subtle emotional cues. Our subconscious mind is observing everything, and sometimes it sends us signals before our conscious mind understands why. That's why you've probably had moments when you knew something wasn't right. Long before you had evidence. You couldn't explain it. You couldn't prove it. But you felt it. And later you discovered your instincts were correct. Natural healers often experience this more intensely than others. It's as though their internal radar is constantly scanning their environment. Not because they're looking for problems, but because they're naturally tuned in. They notice shifts in energy, changes in mood, emotional undercurrents, things that many people overlook. For example, have you ever met someone who seemed perfectly kind on the surface, but something felt off? You couldn't explain it. You had no logical reason to distrust them. Yet every instinct inside you told you to be cautious. Then weeks or months later, their true character revealed itself. And you found yourself saying, "I knew it," not because you had psychic powers, but because you noticed something your conscious mind hadn't fully processed yet. The opposite can happen too. Sometimes you meet someone for the first time and feel an immediate sense of trust, a familiarity, a comfort that seems impossible to explain. It's as though your soul recognizes something before your mind catches up. These experiences often become more common as people grow spiritually and emotionally aware. Because awareness sharpens perception. The more present you become, the more you notice. And here's something many people with healing gifts experience. Crowded environments can feel overwhelming. Not because they're antisocial, not because they dislike people, but because they're processing so much information at once. Every conversation, every emotion, every mood, every interaction. It's like having dozens of radio stations playing simultaneously. Eventually, the nervous system becomes overloaded. That's why many sensitive people need periods of solitude. Not because they want to disconnect from others, but because they need time to reconnect with themselves. Solitude becomes a form of restoration, a way to clear emotional clutter, a way to hear their own thoughts again. And if you've ever felt guilty for needing time alone, let me reassure you, there is nothing wrong with you. Needing solitude doesn't make you selfish. It doesn't make you distant. And it certainly doesn't make you weak. Sometimes stepping away from noise is exactly what allows you to return with clarity. In fact, many of history's greatest spiritual teachers, philosophers, and visionaries regularly sought solitude. Not to escape life, but to understand it more deeply. So if you've always needed moments of quiet, moments of stillness, moments away from the chaos of the world, perhaps that's not a flaw. Perhaps it's part of how you're designed. Let me ask you something. Have you ever walked into a room and instantly sensed the atmosphere before anyone spoke? If you have, write "I feel it" in the comments below. You'll quickly discover you're not the only one. And if this video is helping you better understand yourself, don't forget to subscribe. We create these videos to help people uncover hidden strengths, deepen their spiritual awareness, and navigate life's journey with greater clarity. In return for this free content, subscribing is one of the simplest ways you can support the channel. Now, while sensing energy can be powerful, the next sign is even more surprising, because it often involves complete strangers. People you've never met before. People who somehow feel compelled to tell you their deepest fears, struggles, and secrets within minutes of meeting you. Sign number 5. Strangers open up to you and trust you instantly. Have you ever experienced something like this? You're sitting on a plane, waiting in line at a store, standing at a bus stop, or having a casual conversation with someone you've just met. And within minutes, they begin telling you things that most people would only share with close friends. Their fears, their heartbreaks, their family problems, their disappointments, their regrets, sometimes even their deepest wounds. And afterward, you're left wondering, why did they tell me all of that? We often assume trust develops slowly, over weeks, months, even years. Yet some people seem to inspire trust almost immediately. If this happens to you frequently, it may be another sign of a natural healing presence. People are starving for connection. They are surrounded by noise, surrounded by distractions, surrounded by people who are waiting for their turn to speak. But very few people feel genuinely heard. Very few people feel safe enough to remove their masks. That's why when someone encounters a person with a calm, compassionate, non-judgmental presence, something remarkable happens. Their defenses begin to lower. The walls start coming down. And suddenly they find themselves sharing things they never intended to say. Not because you forced them. Not because you asked intrusive questions. But because your energy silently communicates something powerful. You are safe here. Natural healers often create this effect without realizing it. It's not something they're trying to do. Simply who they are. People sense authenticity. People sense compassion. People sense emotional safety. And when they find it, they naturally gravitate toward it. Think about your own life for a moment. Can you remember a time when you felt completely understood by another person? A moment when you didn't have to pretend. A moment when you didn't have to explain yourself. A moment when you felt accepted exactly as you were. Those experiences stay with us. Sometimes for years. Sometimes forever. Because feeling truly seen is one of the most healing experiences a human being can have. And if strangers repeatedly trust you with their stories, their emotions, and their vulnerabilities, you may be providing that gift more often than you realize. But this sign also comes with a challenge. Because when people trust you deeply, they often bring their pain with them. And if you're not careful, you can begin carrying emotional burdens that were never yours to carry. Many natural healers struggle with this. They listen, they absorb, they care deeply. And before long, they're carrying pieces of dozens of different lives. This is why emotional boundaries become so important. Compassion doesn't require absorption. You can care without carrying. You can listen without taking ownership. You can support without becoming responsible for another person's healing journey. That distinction is life-changing. Because the moment you understand it, you stop draining yourself trying to rescue everyone. Instead, you become a source of light, guide, steady presence. And often that's exactly what people need most. Not someone to save them, but someone who reminds them of their own strength. So let me ask you, do complete strangers often tell you personal things about their lives? Does it happen so often that you've started to think it's unusual? If so, write "People open up to me" in the comments. I'd love to see how many viewers have experienced this. And if you're enjoying this journey of self-discovery, don't forget to subscribe. We spend countless hours creating these videos to help people better understand themselves and their unique gifts. In return for all this free information, subscribing is a simple way to support the channel and help us continue sharing these messages with the world. Now, while trust and emotional connection are powerful signs, the next sign may explain why so many sensitive people feel completely drained after social interactions. Even when those interactions are positive, even when they're surrounded by people they love. And understanding this sign can completely change the way you view your own energy. Sign number 6. You feel exhausted after social interactions. This next sign often confuses people, especially those who genuinely enjoy being around others, because the exhaustion we're about to talk about isn't caused by dislike. It's not caused by shyness, and it's not necessarily caused by introversion. It's something deeper. Have you ever spent a day surrounded by people, friends, family, coworkers, clients, or even people you genuinely care about, only to return home feeling completely drained? Not physically exhausted, emotionally exhausted, mentally exhausted, as if your internal battery had been running all day without a chance to recharge. If this sounds familiar, you're not alone. Many people with natural healing tendencies experience exactly this. And for years, they often misunderstand what's happening. They assume they're weak, antisocial, overly sensitive, or somehow different from everyone else. But the reality may be much simpler. When you're highly empathetic and emotionally aware, every interaction requires energy. Most people hear words. You hear emotions behind the words. Most people see behavior. You sense the feelings driving that behavior. Most people notice what is being said. You often notice what remains unspoken. And that constant processing requires tremendous emotional resources. Imagine carrying a backpack. Now imagine that every person you meet places a small stone inside it. One stone isn't a problem. Neither are 5 or 10. But after an entire day, the weight becomes noticeable. By evening, the backpack feels heavy. This is similar to what many sensitive people experience emotionally. Throughout the day, they're absorbing conversations, moods, concerns, stress, expectations, energy, not consciously, but continuously. And eventually, the nervous system begins signaling that it needs rest. This is why many natural healers crave solitude after social interactions. Not because they don't love people, but because they need space to return to themselves, space to process, space to release, space to breathe. Unfortunately, society often misunderstands this need. People may say things like, "Why are you always alone? Why are you so quiet? You need to get out more." But solitude isn't always avoidance. Sometimes it's maintenance. Sometimes it's healing. Sometimes it's the very thing that allows you to continue showing up fully for others. Think about your phone for a moment. Even the most powerful phone in the world eventually needs to be recharged. No one criticizes it for needing power. No one calls it weak. Simply how it functions. Human beings are no different, especially those who are emotionally and spiritually sensitive. You cannot continuously give without restoring yourself. And yet many healers spend years ignoring this truth. They push themselves. They overextend themselves. They say yes when they want to say no. They continue giving long after their energy reserves are empty. And eventually burnout arrives. Not because they cared too much, but because they forgot to care for themselves. This is why learning to honor your energy is one of the most important skills you can develop. Pay attention to what replenishes you. Maybe it's nature. Maybe it's meditation. Maybe it's prayer. Maybe it's music. Maybe it's simply sitting quietly with your own thoughts. Whatever restores your spirit is not a luxury. It's a necessity. And the more you respect your need for renewal, the stronger your ability to help others becomes. Because true healing never comes from depletion, comes from wholeness. Let me ask you something. Do you often need time alone after spending time with other people? Do social situations sometimes leave you feeling emotionally drained, even when you enjoyed them? If they do, write, "I need to recharge" in the comments below. You may discover that far more people understand this experience than you realize. And if this video is helping you better understand yourself, take a moment to subscribe. We create these videos completely free to help people navigate their spiritual journey with greater awareness and confidence. In return, subscribing is one of the best ways you can support the channel. Now, while emotional exhaustion can be challenging, the next sign is often one of the most beautiful. Because many natural healers share a special connection with something that responds purely to energy. Something that doesn't care about titles, status, money, or appearances. Animals. Sign number 7. Animals are naturally drawn to you. Have you ever noticed that animals seem unusually comfortable around you? Perhaps dogs approach you even when they ignore everyone else. Maybe cats that are normally shy suddenly curl up beside you. Perhaps birds, horses, or other animals seem strangely calm in your presence. If this happens frequently, it may be more meaningful than you realize. Animals experience the world differently than humans do. They aren't impressed by titles. They don't care about social status. They aren't influenced by expensive clothes, job positions, or carefully crafted images. Animals respond to something much more authentic. Energy, presence, intention. They sense what lies beneath the surface. That's why animals often become powerful mirrors. They react to what we truly are rather than what we pretend to be. And many people with natural healing tendencies discover that animals seem to trust them almost immediately. Why? Because healing energy often carries qualities that animals naturally respond to. Calmness, patience, compassion, safety, gentleness. Think about the last time you encountered an anxious animal. What helped calm it down? It probably wasn't words. It wasn't logic. It wasn't persuasion. It was presence. Animals can often sense whether someone feels safe long before humans can. And if animals consistently seek you out, it may indicate that you carry an energy that feels reassuring to them. Many natural healers report this throughout their lives. They become the person animals gravitate toward. The person pets sit beside. The person nervous animals relax around. The person who somehow creates trust without even trying. But this connection goes beyond animals. It often reflects a deeper relationship with life itself. Many people who possess healing gifts feel a profound connection with all living things. Not just animals, trees, plants, forests, mountains, oceans, the natural world. They don't simply observe nature. They feel connected to it. It's as though something inside them comes alive when they're surrounded by life in its purest form. Perhaps you've felt this too. Maybe you've noticed that spending time in nature instantly changes your mood. Your breathing slows down. Your thoughts become clearer. Your stress begins to dissolve. And for the first time all day you feel like yourself again. This isn't unusual among people with strong healing tendencies. Nature often becomes both a teacher and a source of restoration. It reminds us of something we've forgotten in our busy lives. That healing isn't always something we do. Sometimes healing is something we allow. A flower doesn't force itself to bloom. A tree doesn't rush its growth. The river doesn't struggle to flow. Nature teaches us that growth happens when we stop fighting ourselves. And perhaps that's one of the most important lessons for healers. Not everything needs to be fixed. Not everything needs to be controlled. Sometimes the greatest healing occurs when we simply create the conditions for healing to happen naturally. So let me ask you, do animals seem unusually comfortable around you? Have you noticed pets or other animals seeking your attention, even when they ignore other people? So right. Animals love me. In the comments below, I'd love to know how many viewers have experienced this fascinating sign. And if you're enjoying this exploration of healing gifts and spiritual awareness, don't forget to subscribe. We create these videos completely free to help people discover hidden strengths, deepen their understanding of themselves, and explore their spiritual path. In return, all we ask is that you subscribe and join our growing community. Now, while a connection with animals is beautiful, the next sign may be one of the strongest indicators of all, because it reveals what naturally attracts your attention, what sparks your curiosity, and what your soul may have been searching for all along. A deep attraction to spirituality, healing, and personal transformation. Sign number 8. You feel naturally drawn to spirituality, healing, and personal growth. This next sign is often impossible to ignore, because unlike the previous signs, which are based on what you feel, this one is based on what constantly captures your attention. Have you ever wondered why certain topics seem to call to you over and over again? No matter how much time passes, no matter how busy life becomes, you always find yourself returning to the same questions. Questions about purpose. Questions about consciousness. Questions about why we're here. Questions about what exists beyond what we can see. While some people are perfectly content focusing only on the material world, others feel a deep longing to understand something more, something deeper, something invisible, something meaningful. If you've spent years exploring spirituality, healing practices, meditation, personal growth, self-awareness, energy work, prayer, mindfulness, or the mysteries of human consciousness, that may not be accidental. Many natural healers feel this pull from a very young age. Even before they understand why, they become fascinated by topics that others may dismiss. They feel curious about the connection between the mind and the body, the connection between emotions and health, the connection between inner peace and outer reality. It's as if some part of them knows there is more to life than what appears on the surface, and they spend years searching for it. Sometimes this journey begins through pain, a difficult childhood, a major loss, health challenge, a heartbreak, period of confusion, because suffering often awakens questions that comfort never does. Pain has a way of forcing us inward, makes us search, makes us grow. It makes us ask questions we may never have considered otherwise. And many people who eventually become sources of healing for others first begin their journey by trying to heal themselves. Think about that for a moment. Perhaps the struggles you've faced weren't merely obstacles. Perhaps they were preparation. Perhaps the lessons you've learned through your own challenges are precisely what allow you to understand and support others today. Many healers don't emerge from perfect lives. They emerge from transformation. They know what darkness feels like. They know what uncertainty feels like. They know what it means to feel lost. And because they've walked through those experiences, they develop a level of compassion that cannot be learned from books alone. This is why personal growth often becomes a lifelong passion. Not because healers believe they are broken, but because they understand something important. Growth never ends. Awareness never ends. Learning never ends. The deeper you go, the more you realize there is still more to discover. And that realization becomes exciting rather than frightening. You begin seeing life itself as a classroom. Every challenge becomes a lesson. Every relationship becomes a mirror. Every setback becomes an opportunity to grow. And perhaps that's one of the most powerful signs of all. Not that you've arrived, but that you're willing to continue evolving. Because true healing isn't a destination. It's a lifelong journey, a continual process of becoming more conscious, more compassionate, more authentic, more aligned with who you truly are. Now let me ask you something. Have you always felt drawn to spirituality, self-discovery, healing, or personal growth? Even when people around you didn't understand your interest? So, right. I'm on the journey. In the comments below, you'll likely discover that many others have been walking a similar path. And if you're finding value in this video, don't forget to subscribe. We create this content to help people better understand themselves, unlock their hidden potential, and continue growing spiritually and emotionally. In return for all this free information, subscribing is one of the best ways you can support the channel. Now, recognizing these signs is only the beginning. The real question is, what do you do next? How do you strengthen these abilities? How do you develop them wisely? And how do you avoid becoming overwhelmed by them? Let's explore that now. How to develop and strengthen your healing abilities. If you've recognized yourself in several of the signs we've discussed, you may be wondering, what now? What am I supposed to do with this? How do I strengthen these abilities? How do I become more effective without becoming overwhelmed? These are important questions, because having natural healing tendencies is one thing. Learning how to manage them is something else entirely. Many people discover their gifts. Very few learn how to develop them properly. And without guidance, what should feel empowering can become exhausting. The good news is that healing abilities aren't like a switch that suddenly turns on. They're more like a muscle. The more consciously you develop them, the stronger and more balanced they become. Let's begin with the foundation of everything: self-awareness. Step 1. Learn to know yourself deeply. This may sound simple, but it is one of the most important practices you will ever develop. Many people spend their entire lives trying to understand everyone else. Their partners, their children, their friends, their co-workers, yet they rarely take the time to truly understand themselves. Natural healers often become experts at reading other people while remaining disconnected from their own needs. They know when everyone else is hurting, but struggle to recognize when they themselves need support. This is why self-awareness is essential. The more you understand your own emotions, patterns, triggers, strengths, and weaknesses, the easier it becomes to distinguish what belongs to you and what belongs to someone else. Without self-awareness, everything becomes mixed together. Other people's emotions become your emotions. Other people's stress becomes your stress. Other people's fears become your fears. And eventually you lose clarity. The solution is simple. Spend time with yourself. Not with your phone. Not with distractions. Not with endless noise. With yourself. Journal your thoughts. Reflect on your experiences. Observe your emotional patterns. Ask yourself questions. What drains me? What energizes me? What situations consistently leave me feeling depleted? What environments help me feel alive? The answers may reveal more than you expect. Step 2. Develop a daily practice of stillness. One of the greatest challenges facing modern society is constant stimulation. Notifications, emails, news, social media, entertainment, noise. Many people move from one distraction to another without ever experiencing true silence. But healing abilities grow stronger in stillness. Because stillness allows you to hear what the noise has been drowning out. Your intuition, your inner wisdom, your deeper awareness. Whether it's meditation, prayer, mindful breathing, or quiet reflection, creating a daily practice of stillness can dramatically strengthen your connection to yourself. And here's the beautiful part. You don't need hours. You don't need special equipment. You don't need perfect conditions. Even 5 or 10 minutes a day can begin creating profound changes over time. Consistency matters far more than duration. A few minutes every day is far more powerful than 1 hour once a month. Think of it like watering a plant. Small amounts regularly create growth. Neglect followed by occasional bursts of effort rarely do. And as you create more moments of stillness, you'll begin noticing something remarkable. Your intuition becomes clearer. Your emotional awareness becomes sharper. And your sense of inner peace becomes more stable. Not because life becomes easier, but because you become more centered within it. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you sat in complete silence for 10 minutes? No phone, no television, no music, no distractions, just you and your thoughts. If it's been a while, perhaps that's the perfect place to begin. And if you're enjoying this deeper exploration of personal growth and spiritual awareness, don't forget to subscribe. We spend countless hours creating these videos completely free. In return, all we ask is that you subscribe and become part of this community of growth-minded people. Now, while self-awareness and stillness are powerful foundations, there is another skill that every healer must develop if they want to thrive. Because without it, even the strongest gifts can become overwhelming. And that skill is learning to trust your intuition. Step 3. Learning to trust your intuition. Have you ever had a feeling about something and ignored it, only to discover later that your first instinct was right? Most people have experienced this at least once. But for individuals with strong healing tendencies, it often happens repeatedly. The challenge is that intuition rarely speaks loudly. It doesn't usually arrive with absolute certainty. It doesn't shout. It whispers, feeling, nudge, a sense that something is right or wrong, before logic has had time to catch up. And because intuition speaks so quietly, many people learn to dismiss it. They second-guess themselves. They talk themselves out of what they initially felt. They convince themselves they're imagining things, until life repeatedly proves otherwise. Now, it's important to understand something. Intuition is not fear. Many people confuse the two. Fear feels urgent, anxious, chaotic. Fear pushes. Fear pressures. Fear demands immediate action. Intuition feels different. It's calm, clear, steady, even when it's warning you about something. That's one of the easiest ways to tell the difference. Fear creates panic. Intuition creates awareness. The more you learn to recognize that difference, the stronger your inner guidance becomes. Think back over your own life. How many times did you sense that a relationship wasn't right? How many times did you feel drawn toward an opportunity before you fully understood why? How many times did you know deep down what decision needed to be made, even when everyone around you disagreed? Many natural healers discover that their intuition has been guiding them for years. The problem wasn't that intuition wasn't speaking. The problem was that they weren't listening. And that's understandable. Modern society teaches us to trust external voices, experts, opinions, trends, social expectations. But very few people are taught how to trust themselves. Very few people are taught how to listen inwardly. Yet some of the most important decisions you'll ever make cannot be solved by logic alone. Relationships, purpose, meaning, calling, direction. These often require something deeper than analysis. They require inner wisdom. The good news is that intuition becomes stronger with practice. Every time you pause before reacting, every time you become more present, every time you listen to that quiet inner voice, you strengthen your connection to it. And eventually you begin noticing patterns. You begin recognizing the difference between genuine guidance and emotional noise. You begin trusting yourself more. And confidence naturally follows. Not because you suddenly know everything, but because you've learned to trust your own inner compass. Step 4. Protecting your energy. This next step may be one of the most important of all, because many people discover their gifts, but never learn how to protect themselves. As a result, they spend years feeling overwhelmed, drained, emotionally exhausted, confused, not because something is wrong with them, but because they're constantly absorbing more than they realize. Imagine leaving every door and window of your home open 24 hours a day. Eventually, anything could enter. Kiss. The same principle applies to your emotional and spiritual life. Healthy boundaries are not walls. They're filters. They help you decide what deserves access to your energy and what does not. One of the biggest mistakes many healers make is believing they must be available to everyone at all times. They answer every call, solve every crisis, carry every burden, listen to every problem, until one day they discover they have nothing left for themselves. This is not healing. This is depletion. Remember this. You are not responsible for everyone's emotional well-being. You are not responsible for saving everyone. You are not responsible for fixing every problem. Your responsibility is to remain healthy enough to continue being a source of light. And that requires boundaries. Sometimes boundaries look like saying no. Sometimes they look like spending time alone. Sometimes they look like limiting exposure to people who constantly drain your energy. And sometimes they look like choosing peace over obligation. There is nothing selfish about protecting your well-being. In fact, it is one of the most loving things you can do. Because the healthier you become, the more effectively you can serve others. The stronger your foundation becomes. The more stable your presence becomes. And the more stable your presence becomes, the more healing naturally flows through everything you do. So let me ask you something. Do you trust your intuition? Or do you often ignore it and regret it later? And are you protecting your energy as much as you protect the people you care about? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your experience may help someone else who is learning the same lessons. And if you're finding value in this journey, don't forget to subscribe. We create these videos completely free to help people grow spiritually, emotionally, and personally. In return, all we ask is that you subscribe and support the channel. Now, there is one final lesson that every healer eventually discovers. A lesson that completely changes the way they view their gift. Because healing is not really about changing other people. It's about something much deeper. The final lesson. Healing isn't about fixing people. As we come to the end of this journey, there's one truth that every healer eventually discovers. And it may be the most important lesson of all. Healing isn't about fixing people. It isn't about rescuing everyone who crosses your path. It isn't about carrying the pain of the world on your shoulders. And it certainly isn't about sacrificing yourself until there's nothing left. For many years, people with healing gifts often believe that's exactly what they're supposed to do. They become the rescuer, the problem solver, the emotional caretaker, the one everyone depends on, the one who never asks for help because they're too busy helping everyone else. But eventually, life teaches them something profound. People do not heal because you force them to. People heal when they are ready. People heal when they choose growth. People heal when they decide to take responsibility for their own journey. And your role was never to walk the path for them. Your role was simply to help illuminate the path. That's a completely different responsibility. Think about the most influential people you've ever met. People who changed your life. The people who inspired you. The people who helped you become a better version of yourself. Most likely they didn't solve your problems. They didn't live your life for you. They didn't remove every obstacle. What they did was remind you of something you had forgotten. your own strength, your own wisdom, your own potential. That's what true healing does. Doesn't create dependence, creates empowerment, doesn't make people weaker, helps them remember how powerful they already are. And perhaps that's exactly what you've been doing all along without realizing it. Perhaps every conversation, every act of kindness, every moment of compassion, every time you've listened without judgment, every time you've offered hope to someone who was struggling, you were already expressing your gift. Not through grand gestures, not through dramatic miracles, but through presence, through authenticity, through love. Because sometimes the most powerful healing doesn't happen through words. It happens through who you are, the energy you bring into a room, the peace people feel around you, the comfort people experience in your presence, the feeling of being seen, being understood, being accepted. These things may seem small, but they have the power to transform lives. And in a world where so many people feel disconnected, unseen, and overwhelmed, those gifts matter more than ever. So if you've spent your life feeling different, if you've always been more sensitive than those around you, if you've wondered why people naturally trust you, why animals are drawn to you, why crowds exhaust you, why spirituality calls to you, why helping others feels like second nature, perhaps there's nothing wrong with you at all. Perhaps these experiences have been pointing toward something beautiful all along. A deeper awareness, a greater compassion, a unique ability to bring light into the lives of others. Not because you're meant to save the world, but because you're meant to contribute your unique gifts to it. And before we finish, I have something special for you. If topics like spiritual growth, self-discovery, intuition, healing, consciousness, and personal transformation inspire you, then I highly encourage you to continue your journey with our personal growth and spiritual development playlist. Inside that playlist, you'll find powerful videos designed to help you deepen your self-awareness, strengthen your intuition, develop inner peace, and continue evolving into the person you're meant to become. Many viewers tell us that these videos have helped them see themselves and their life experiences from an entirely new perspective. You'll find the playlist linked right after this video. It's the perfect next step for anyone who wants to continue exploring these fascinating topics. And now, I'd love to hear from you. Which sign resonated with you the most? Was it empathy, intuition, feeling drained by crowds, your connection with animals, or perhaps something else entirely? Share your answer in the comments below. Not only do we read the comments, but your story may help someone else realize they're not alone on this journey. And if you've received value from today's video, please take a moment to subscribe. We create these videos completely free, and in return for all the time, research, and effort that goes into them, that's all we ask. Your support helps us continue creating meaningful content that reaches people who need it most. Thank you for spending this time with us. Thank you for being part of this community. And remember, your sensitivity is not a weakness. Your compassion is not a flaw. Your desire to help others is not a burden. When understood and nurtured properly, these qualities can become some of your greatest strengths. Keep growing. Keep learning, keep trusting your journey, and above all, never underestimate the healing power of simply being yourself. We'll see you in the next video.